It was supposed to be a 5-minute elevator ride, that's all. Just 5 minutes from the 12th floor to the lobby. I was already late for my 3 p.m. dentist appointment, still had coffee breath, and honestly, I wasn't trying to spend even one more second in that office building. But fate, or maybe the ancient wiring of the building's elevator system, had other plans. And if you'd told me that getting stuck between floors with my coworker Daniel would lead to the most emotionally confusing 4 hours of my life, I would have laughed in your face. Because Daniel was the guy who stole the last donut at every Friday meeting. The guy who wore tailored suits like he was doing a GQ spread in a shared workspace. The guy who flirted with the office receptionist like it was his full-time job. Also, Daniel was straight. Or so I thought. Let me rewind. We worked on the same floor but in different departments. I was over in creative, designing layouts, pitching campaigns, dying a little inside every time a client said, "Can you make it pop more?" Daniel was sales. Loud, smooth, way too confident for someone who used the word synergy without irony. We'd never really had a real conversation. Just the occasional hey by the break room fridge or the half-hearted wave across the conference room. That day, we happened to leave the office at the same time. I had my earbuds in. He was texting. We both stepped into the elevator like two strangers in a movie. He gave a nod. I gave a tight-lipped smile. Then, the elevator stuttered and stopped. "What the hell?" he muttered, tapping the button panel like it owed him money. The lights flickered. The fan shut off. The air stilled. And just like that, we were stuck. Daniel tried the emergency button. Nothing. He pulled out his phone. No service. I did the same. No bars. No Wi-Fi. Just us, a flickering ceiling light, and 4 walls that suddenly felt way too close. "Perfect," he said, stepping back and exhaling hard. "Of course this happens today." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I tried not to look at how good he looked when he was annoyed. Emphasis on tried. I sat down on the floor, because what else was I supposed to do? Standing there awkwardly wouldn't get us rescued any faster. "You good?" I asked after a minute. He looked down at me, surprised I spoke. "Yeah, just claustrophobic." "Seriously?" "Not like panic attack claustrophobic. Just mildly hate small spaces." "Well, lucky us." He huffed out a laugh and slid down the wall until he was sitting across from me. "Guess we're gonna be here a while." I nodded. "Yeah. Looks like it." That first half hour was mostly silence. I scrolled through old photos on my phone to kill time. He tapped his foot like he was counting the seconds. We made some awkward small talk. Weather, weekend plans, how much our office sucked. Somewhere between minute 40 and minute 50, he stretched out his legs, sighed deeply, and said, "Okay, I'm bored. Let's play a game." I raised an eyebrow. "A game?" He nodded. "Yeah, like what is the strangest place you have ever done it? Or have you ever sexted the wrong person? You know, elevator bonding." I blinked. "That's oddly specific." Daniel just smirked. "You got a better idea?" We played. I learned that he was once close in a bathroom at a music festival and accidentally sent a shirtless mirror selfie to his boss instead of his ex. I told him I once flirted with someone for 2 weeks before realizing they were married and just being nice. We laughed. It was easy. Too easy. By hour 2, I forgot I was sitting cross-legged on cheap carpet next to a guy the first barely knew. Daniel had this way of making things feel light, even when the air was getting thick and warm, and the overhead light buzzed like it was about to give out. Then he asked, "You got someone?" I tilted my head. "Someone like?" He shrugged. "You know, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever." I hesitated. "No, not for a while." Daniel nodded. "Same." That surprised me. "Really?" "Yeah. You'd think someone this charming would be taken, huh?" He joked, flashing that half smile I'd seen him use in meetings. I chuckled, then looked down at the carpet between us. "I always figured you were the type who didn't stay single long." His eyes were on me now. I could feel it. "You always figured?" he asked, voice quieter. I glanced up. Our eyes locked. And something shifted. Subtle, but real. "Sorry," I said quickly. "Didn't mean to assume." He didn't answer right away. Then he leaned back against the wall and said, "You're not wrong. I've dated a lot. But none of it stuck." "Why not?" "I guess." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I guess I never really figured out what I wanted." That hung in the air a little longer than it should have. The light buzzed. The elevator creaked. We both looked up instinctively, as if rescue was finally coming. It wasn't. Daniel looked back at me. "Can I tell you something kinda weird?" My stomach did a little flip. "Sure," I said. He leaned forward, arms resting on his knees. "I think I've been figuring it out lately," he said, eyes on mine. "What I want. Or maybe who I want." My mouth went dry. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because something told me this confession wasn't just about hypotheticals. It was about me. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because I genuinely had no idea what to say. Daniel sat there across from me, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the floor like he'd just dropped a grenade and was waiting to see if it would go off. I shifted a little, trying to keep my voice casual, even though my heartbeat was anything but. "You mean, like, someone you work with?" I asked. He glanced up, and for the first time in the 2 years I'd seen him around the office, he didn't have that confident sales guy look. He looked almost nervous. "I mean, yeah," he said, voice lower now. "Someone I didn't expect to think about like that. Someone who's just always been there. Quiet, smart, kinda sarcastic." I swallowed hard. "Me?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes met mine. "Yeah, you." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like my brain was short-circuiting from disbelief. "Dude," I said, shaking my head. "You're joking." "I'm not," he said simply. No smirk, no teasing. He meant it, and now I didn't know what to do with myself. "I thought you were straight," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I did too," he admitted, still figuring it out, honestly. "But lately, I don't know, things feel different." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of things?" He let out a slow breath. "Like how I keep ending up in the break room around the same time as you, or how I actually look forward to those dumb Friday meetings because I get to sit across from you, or how I noticed when you cut your hair, even though nobody else did." I stared at him, stunned. My brain scrambled to form words. "You noticed my haircut?" "Yeah," he said softly, "and I liked it." Silence. I had imagined this moment before. Something like it, anyway. In my wildest daydreams, Daniel would suddenly realize he wasn't as straight as he thought. He'd corner me in the stairwell, or find some excuse to text me late at night, and say something that hinted at something more. But I never thought it would actually happen. And I definitely didn't expect it to happen while trapped in an elevator with bad lighting and stale air. Still, it was happening. "So what does this mean?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. He shrugged. "I don't know. I didn't come in here planning to say anything, but when you're stuck in a box with someone for this long, you start thinking about the stuff you've been avoiding." I looked down at my hands, then back at him. "You're not just bored, are you?" I asked carefully. "This isn't some heat-of-the-moment trapped in an elevator crisis thing?" Daniel shook his head. "No. I've been thinking about this for a while. I just didn't know how to bring it up." I was quiet for a second, heart still racing. "I've had a crush on you for months," I said suddenly, like my mouth had made the decision without me. He blinked. "Seriously?" I nodded. "Yeah. Thought you'd never even noticed me." He laughed under his breath. "Are you kidding? You're like the one guy the first can't ignore." We sat there in silence again. But this time, it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, warm, buzzing with something I couldn't quite name. "Can I sit closer?" he asked, voice soft. I nodded, barely trusting myself to speak. He moved, slowly, sitting beside me so our shoulders brushed. The heat of him was immediate, like he radiated it. I could smell his cologne again, and this time it made my head swim. We sat like that for a minute. Then he tilted his head toward me. "I keep thinking about what I'd do if we weren't in this elevator," he said. I turned to face him. "Yeah? What would you do?" He hesitated, then said, "I'd probably ask if I could kiss you." My breath caught. "You don't need to wait until we're out," I said before I could second guess it. He searched my face for a beat, then leaned in. Slowly, like he was giving me every chance to back out. I didn't. And when his lips met mine, it was soft. Careful. Just enough to leave me dizzy. Nothing dramatic. No fireworks. But it felt real. When he pulled back, his forehead stayed close to mine. "I've wanted to do that for way too long," he whispered. I smiled, probably like an idiot. 4 hours in an elevator might be the best thing that ever happened to me, I whispered back. He chuckled. "Don't say that yet. We've still got a few hours to go. You might end up hating me." I doubt it. And honestly, I meant it. After that kiss, everything inside the elevator felt different. I don't know if it was the kiss itself or the fact that it even happened at all. But the air between us had shifted. We weren't two bored coworkers anymore, killing time with elevator small talk. We were two guys sitting a little too close, hearts thudding in sync, minds racing. I leaned back against the wall, trying to get my breathing under control. Daniel looked over at me, eyes warm, a little wide, like he was still processing what he'd just done. Honestly, same. "So," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "What now?" I shook my head slowly. "I have no idea," he chuckled. "Yeah, me neither." A beat passed. "You regret it?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but failing. I hated how small my voice sounded. "No," he said immediately, shaking his head. "No, I don't." That alone made something tight in my chest loosen. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking thoughtful. I've been trying to figure this out for months, honestly. What it meant that I kept thinking about you when I shouldn't. And not just, like once or twice. A lot. I looked over at him. "So this isn't just a one-time thing?" His eyes locked with mine. Not for me. That admission hit harder than I expected. Daniel, the guy who once told the whole office he couldn't live without football Sundays and Buffalo Wild Wings, was now sitting beside me in an elevator, talking about feelings like we were in some indie romance movie. He gave a nervous laugh. "I probably sound like a mess." "You sound honest," I said. His shoulder brushed against mine again, intentional this time. "You've always been kind of mysterious, you know that?" "Mysterious?" "Yeah. You're quiet, but not in a weird way. In a confident way. Like you don't need to prove anything to anyone. I noticed that early on. You never said anything." "I didn't think I could," he said with a shrug. "I had this idea of who I was supposed to be. Who I was supposed to be into." I nodded slowly, feeling that too deep to explain weight of recognition. "And then I ruined it by existing?" He laughed. "Pretty much." We both smiled. The tension had shifted again. Still electric, but softer now. "Comfortable. You're braver than I thought," I said. He tilted his head. "Brave?" "Yeah, telling me all this, making a move. That kiss. I figured if we were going to die in here, I didn't want to die wondering." I raised an eyebrow. "Dramatic much?" "Absolutely," he grinned. "You should have seen me in high school drama club. Played Romeo once." "That actually makes way too much sense." He leaned in again, more relaxed now. "What about you?" he asked. "How long have you thought about it?" "You?" I asked. He nodded. I thought for a second. Honestly, since the first time I saw you smile. Daniel laughed, like he wasn't sure whether to be flattered or embarrassed. Was I smiling at you or the free donuts? Both, I said. But I was hoping it was just me. For a while, we just sat there, legs stretched out, shoulders still touching. He asked me about my first boyfriend. I asked him if this was the first time he'd kissed a guy. He nodded. Yeah, never even came close before. I didn't know what to say to that, but I could tell by the way he looked at me. Steady, calm, maybe even a little proud, that he didn't regret it. Not even for a second. Eventually, the conversation slowed. The room felt warmer than before, and not just from the broken fan. We stopped talking for a while. Just breathed, existed. I caught him watching me more than once. You keep staring, I said. He didn't look away. Can you blame me? I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't fight the smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Then, out of nowhere, the elevator made a groaning noise. The lights flickered again. We both sat up straighter. Is this it? He asked, like we were about to get launched into space. A sudden jolt knocked us sideways. Then nothing. Still stuck. Daniel let out a dramatic groan and flopped back against the wall. Guess I should have known we wouldn't be rescued right after our first kiss. That would have been too perfect. I laughed. Welcome to the real world. But then he reached for my hand. And just like that, everything felt perfect anyway. It's weird how fast you can go from feeling like strangers to whatever we were now. Daniel didn't let go of my hand after he reached for it. His fingers curled around mine, relaxed, but deliberate. It wasn't awkward. If anything, it felt kind of grounding, like we were both clinging to this one thread of certainty in the middle of everything else. The elevator groaned again, but stayed put. Think they're even working on it? He asked after a long stretch of silence. I don't know. Hopefully, someone noticed the call button lit up. He looked down at our hands. If they don't come soon, you'll probably get sick of me. I squeezed his hand a little. I think you've got a few hours before I reach that point. He smiled. Cool. I'll start being annoying around hour 6. I leaned my head back against the wall and closed my eyes. You've already got a head start. He nudged my leg with his knee. Okay, rude. We both laughed, and that laughter drifted into silence again. But it wasn't uncomfortable, just calm, warm. At some point, I realized how close he'd gotten. Our legs were touching now, and the side of his shoulder was resting lightly against mine. If we weren't stuck in here, I said after a while, would you still have told me? He didn't answer immediately. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe not today, but eventually, yeah. Why today then? He looked over at me, thoughtful. Because you didn't run away. I blinked. Why would I have run away? He gave a small shrug. I don't know. Maybe because I'm the guy who's always acted like I had everything figured out, like I was some expert on being straight. I smiled. You did sell it pretty hard. He laughed softly. I had a whole identity built around it. Being the dude. You know, sports, dates, all that crap. And now, he let out a breath. Now it feels like I've been ignoring a part of myself for a long time. Like I was watching someone else live my life and just letting it happen. I didn't say anything at first. There wasn't anything I could say that wouldn't sound like a Hallmark movie. But I understood more than I could express in a single sentence. Do you feel lighter now? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, I do. And I could tell he meant it. You know, he said after a moment. I used to think the only reason I noticed you was because you were different from everyone else at work. Like, you didn't play the office politics game, you just did your thing. I smirked. So you were crushing on the weird kid in the corner? More like the one guy who didn't care if anyone noticed him. That's not true, I said, shrugging. I noticed you. He looked over. Yeah? I turned my head slightly to face him. Every time you walked into the room. His breath hitched, just a little. And that small reaction, it told me more than any words could. It was strange. The more we talked, the more it felt like this wasn't just some fluke moment. Like maybe all that casual tension from the break room, the meetings, the brief glances across the office, maybe none of it had been one-sided. I kept thinking about how this would feel tomorrow. Would it be awkward? Would he pretend none of it happened once we got out? He must have picked up on my shifted mood because he said, "You're overthinking." "Probably," I admitted. "You think this is gonna disappear once we're back at our desks, don't you?" "Isn't that what usually happens with elevator crushes?" He gave a soft, crooked smile. "This isn't just an elevator crush." I turned fully to face him now, legs crossed, elbow resting on my knee. "Then what is it?" He paused, chewing on the inside of his cheek like he was choosing his words carefully. "It's something I want to keep figuring out," he said. "With you." And I don't know why, but that made my chest ache in the best way possible. We sat like that for a while. No pressure to fill the space. Just sitting, hands still loosely tangled. Eventually, he rested his head lightly on my shoulder. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. And for the first time all day, the stillness in that elevator didn't feel suffocating. It felt right. Daniel didn't sleep, but he got quiet. Head resting gently on my shoulder, fingers still barely touching mine. I could feel his breathing settle. Slower, calmer. Like for the first time in a long time, he wasn't pretending to be someone he wasn't. Neither was I. Outside the elevator, the world probably kept moving. Emails kept coming in, meetings started without us, someone probably made a joke about us disappearing. But in that little box, time felt suspended. No phones, no distractions, no performance, just us. And honestly, it was kind of perfect. Until my stomach growled, loudly. Daniel looked up at me, blinking like he'd just come out of a dream. Then he smirked. "You okay?" he asked, teasing. I groaned. "I haven't eaten since breakfast." "That's why you were going downstairs, huh? The cafe?" "Yep. Protein bar mission." Failed dramatically. He sat up straighter, digging into his jacket pocket. "Wait, I might have something." I watched as he pulled out a crushed granola bar and held it up like it was treasure. "No way," I said, laughing. "It's peanut butter," he added with a grin. "Your favorite, right?" I blinked. "How did you?" "You told Kyle in the kitchen once. I overheard. Filed it away." I shook my head, smiling. "You're ridiculous." "Grateful, though?" I took the bar. "Extremely." We split it, carefully down the middle. It was stale, dry, and tasted like pure survival. But for some reason, it felt better than any meal I'd had in weeks. As I chewed, I realized how surreal all of this was. This tiny metal box had become its own world. And somehow, Daniel, the last person I ever expected to get real with, had become the most honest part of my day. "You ever wonder why we never talked before?" he asked, brushing crumbs off his pants. "All the time," I admitted. He tilted his head. "I always thought you didn't like me." I raised an eyebrow. "Why would you think that?" "I don't know. You were always kind of unreadable. You'd laugh at jokes, but never fake laugh. You'd show up to the meetings, but never try to impress anyone. You just did your job and left." "That's a bad thing?" "No," he said quickly. "That's what made me notice you." I blinked. "Seriously." "Yeah, you were different." He ran a hand through his hair again, the same nervous gesture I'd seen him do a dozen times before, but this time it felt different. Softer, more vulnerable. "I used to see you in the elevator sometimes," he said, "like weeks ago, and I'd want to say something, just start a conversation." "Why didn't you?" He shrugged. "Because I thought if I started talking, I wouldn't be able to stop." That hit me harder than it should have. My voice was quieter now. "Is that a bad thing?" He looked at me, really looked at me. "No, I think it's exactly what I needed." We locked eyes again, and something passed between us, something unspoken, warm, steady. He moved first this time, closer. No buildup, no hesitation, just a hand on the back of my neck, pulling me in for a kiss that was fuller, more certain than the first. This one wasn't about testing the waters. This one said, I meant it. It was slow but deliberate. His lips moved like he'd wanted this for a long time, and didn't care if the whole damn building was listening. My hand found his chest, flat against his heartbeat, and it was steady, strong, real. When we broke apart, he didn't move far, just rested his forehead against mine and exhaled. Okay, he whispered. Okay? I echoed. He smiled. Okay, I'm really into you. I laughed, quiet, disbelieving. You say that like you just realized it. I kind of did, he said. But I also kind of didn't. I pulled back just enough to see his face. And what happens when this elevator starts moving again? He thought about it, then said, we get dinner. Dinner? Yeah, outside of this elevator, like normal people, I nodded. Okay. But I'm picking the place, he grinned. As long as it's not that weird noodle bar you're obsessed with. That's exactly where I'm taking you now, he groaned. Fine. But only if you let me pay. Deal. We smiled at each other for a moment longer. Then, somewhere behind the panel, a soft click. A whir. The lights steadied. The fan came back to life. We both looked up. No way, I muttered. The elevator jerked softly. Then started descending. Slow. Steady. After 4 hours, we were finally moving again. Daniel looked over at me. You ready? I looked at him, heart full of something I wasn't quite ready to name. Yeah, I said. But can we stay in here like 5 more minutes? He laughed, and without a word, reached for my hand again. The elevator crept its way to the lobby like it was trying to be dramatic on purpose. Each floor we passed made my stomach twist just a little more. Not out of panic, but out of that weird feeling you get when something important is ending before you're ready to let go of it. Daniel looked calm on the outside, but his leg was bouncing again. Same as earlier when the elevator first froze up, only this time, I knew it wasn't anxiety about being trapped. It was something else. He caught me watching and gave a sheepish smile. You nervous? A little, he admitted. Feels like once those doors open, we're back in the real world. No more elevator bubble. I nodded. Yeah, he hesitated. You still want dinner? Yeah, I said without missing a beat. That seemed to relax him. His hand brushed against mine again, this time slower, more intentional. The elevator dinged. Lobby. We both stood. I fixed my shirt collar. He ran a hand through his hair. They looked at each other, both silently asking the same question. What now? Then the doors opened with a gentle swoosh. It was jarringly bright outside the elevator. The lobby was buzzing, receptionist answering calls, someone wheeling in a delivery cart, a group of interns laughing too loudly near the exit. No one noticed us. No one had any idea what just happened between those 4 metal walls. Daniel stepped out first. I followed. It should have felt anticlimactic, but it didn't. Because even with the noise, the movement, the return to normalcy, something had shifted. In me, in him, in whatever this was becoming. He turned around once we were a few steps away, leaning in like he was about to say something, then pulled back. I'll text you? He asked, almost like he was afraid I'd changed my mind already. I smiled. You better. And for the first time since that kiss, he looked nervous again, but also kind of thrilled. We parted there, each heading in different directions. Him to the parking garage, me toward the sidewalk to find a cab. I stepped outside, the afternoon sun hitting harder than I expected. Or maybe it just felt that way, because everything felt new. I kept playing the afternoon over in my head. The tension, the honesty, the kiss, the granola bar. It all felt surreal, but in that quiet, unforgettable way, like something that had been trying to happen for a long time and finally found a reason to show up. As I waited on the curb, my phone buzzed. Daniel, elevator guy, Friday, 7 p.m., you and me, peanut butter M&Ms for dessert. I laughed out loud right there on the street. Me, Only if you wear that stupid tie you had on today. Daniel, deal. But I'm not sharing the M&Ms. Me, then I'm not sharing the noodles. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, the smile still stuck on my face. We might have been strangers at 3 p.m., but by 7 p.m. Friday, something was definitely starting. Friday couldn't come fast enough. I spent most of the next day in a fog, running through every second of the elevator ride like it had been a dream I was scared to forget. Every pause, every look, every touch, it played on a loop in my head. I'd replay his voice saying, "I'm really into you," while brushing my teeth or zoning out during meetings. It made my stomach tighten and my chest buzz in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. But it also made me nervous. Because being into someone in a stuck elevator is easy. Real life? That's a whole different arena. So when 7 p.m. rolled around and I found myself standing outside a tiny Korean noodle spot just a few blocks from work, I wasn't sure what version of Daniel I was about to see. Would he show up looking polished and confident, like the sales guy everyone admired? Would he backpedal? Would he pretend none of it happened? And then he walked up, not in a suit, not in his usual swagger, but in a black hoodie, jeans, and a baseball cap turned backwards. And, yes, the dumb paisley tie draped around his neck like a scarf. "You said wear it," he said with a smirk. I laughed. "That I did." He pulled it off and shoved it into his pocket. But that's enough corporate cosplay for one night. We walked in together. No plan, no script, just curiosity. The restaurant was small and dimly lit, just a handful of booths lining one wall. "Daniel, let me pick the spot." We sat in the corner, side by side, instead of across, like we couldn't quite give up the closeness from earlier in the week. The server came, we ordered, and then there was a moment of silence, our first since the elevator. No hum of fluorescent lights, no buzz of a broken fan, just real-world quiet. I turned to him. "So, still figuring it out?" He looked thoughtful. "Yeah. But it doesn't feel as confusing as it used to." I nodded, waiting. "Being around you," he continued, "makes it feel less like I'm betraying some version of myself I thought I had to be, and more like I'm actually becoming someone." That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't say anything right away, just reached across the table and lightly touched his wrist. He didn't flinch. He leaned into it. "Is this weird for you?" he asked softly. "What part?" "All of it. Me, this, us." I thought about it. "Yeah," I admitted, "but the good kind of weird. The kind that makes you feel something." He exhaled. "Exactly." Dinner was easy. Conversation even easier. We talked about music, weekend plans, how terrible the coffee in our building really was. I learned he played piano growing up. He found out I once accidentally sent a meme to our boss instead of a friend, and had to pretend it was part of a presentation idea. We laughed a lot, and something about the way he looked at me, more often now, longer, with that same soft concentration he had in the elevator, made it clear this wasn't just curiosity or impulse. It was interest. It was him choosing to be here. After dinner, we walked. Just a few blocks. Nowhere in particular. The city felt less sharp that night, like it had softened just for us. Daniel's hand brushed mine a few times before he finally just took it. No big moment. No hesitation. Just fingers threading through mine. And there we were, two guys who had barely exchanged words a week ago, now walking side by side through downtown, holding hands like it wasn't terrifying or complicated. Just good. When we reached the corner where we'd part ways, he stopped. "So what now?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'd like to find out." His smile was small, quiet. "Me too." Then, one more kiss. Not rushed, not nervous, just real. When we finally stepped back, he touched my chin lightly, like he wasn't ready to let go yet. "You know," he said, "next time I see you in the elevator." "Yeah?" "I'm hitting the emergency stop," I laughed. "That's a felony. Worth it.